Presentation of dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
Coming up, it's the middle of winter, and what better time to curl up with a good book? Two Idaho authors will talk about their works and recommend good reads, and we want to hear from you, too. Dialogue is next. Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. A welcome as well to those of you listening on public radio and the World Wide Web. Netflix, video games, iPods, the internet, texting. So many ways to occupy one's time, so much information swirling around. But for some folks, including me, there's nothing like a good book. Today we'll talk with two of Idaho's best authors and hear about their newest works, as well as the themes that inspire them. And also, as we have in years past, they'll recommend books for you to read. We also want to hear from you. What's on your nightstand? Give us a call at 1-800-973-9800. We'll put your books, along with my guests' picks on our Dialogue website. Now let me introduce my guests. Joining us from our studio in Moscow on the campus of the University of Idaho is Kim Barnes. Ms. Barnes is a professor at the university and the author of two memoirs about growing up along the Clearwater River called In the Wilderness and Hungry for the World, along with a novel, Finding Caruso. Now, In the Wilderness was nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. Barnes's latest work is called A Country Called Home. The novel is the winner of the 2009 Penn Center USA Literary Award for Fiction. Welcome to Dialogue, Kim.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And joining me here in Boise is Mitch Wieland. Mr. Wieland is a professor at Boise State University, the founding editor of the Idaho Review, and the author of the novel Willie Slater's Lane. A story from his most recent novel, God's Dogs, was selected for the anthology Best of the West 2009. Thanks for being here.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Again, if you'd like to share your choice for a good read, give us a call at 1-800-973-9800. First, up to you, Kim, in Moscow. Your book is fabulous. I've read it, and I'd like you to explain a little bit about the title, A Country Called Home. How did you come up with that, and what does it mean?
Well, it's the story of a young couple who leave Connecticut during 1960 in the Back to the Land movement, and they come to Idaho to make a better life for themselves. And in that quest for a better life, one of them finds that he's attracted most to the land, but the young woman finds that she feels isolated. One of my friends, Judy Blunt, a writer I know you're familiar with, who was raised her children on a ranch in Montana, said when you're without children, it's solitude, but once you have children, it's isolation. And so this is a story of how solitude becomes isolation, especially for the young woman, and their quest to find that place that they might call home and their people, and how they become a part of a community or not.
And as I mentioned in my introduction, you've written two memoirs about growing up along the Clearwater River, and this book, while it doesn't necessarily mention the Clearwater by name, certainly seems to be set in the same location, a location that draws you over and over and over again.
It's true. The Clearwater River is one of my sacred places. I was born and raised on its feeding streams all my life until I moved to Moscow in 2000. And I'm still grieving the loss of the river. And in fact, you're right, A Country Called Home is set at Lenore, where I lived with my husband and raised our children from about 2000 or 1990 to 2000. And when I was writing that book, it begins, the first sentence is first the river. And as I wrote it, I realized really for me it's an elegy for the loss of that river from my life. And I am so enmeshed in that landscape. It is so much, it's part of my DNA, it's part of my genetic structure.
And finally, before we move on to Mitch, what is it like to write fiction after having written memoir? Obviously, you've written fiction before, but how does it feel different or the same?
Well, when I write memoir, I always say I know what happened, I just don't know why. And with fiction, you don't even necessarily know what happened. It's a process of discovery. So I often feel overwhelmed by the possibilities. I can introduce a pizza delivery man at the door on Christmas Eve. It could happen. I always tell my students, if they don't know what happens next in their book, have someone pick up a hitchhiker. And you can do that. In nonfiction, generally you can, but the discovery in nonfiction often is why. Why this memory, why this happened, whereas in fiction, I'm still trying to discover the what.
Yes, if you do it in nonfiction, you get in trouble, as several writers have found out by inventing things that happened supposedly in their lives. Mitch Wieland, you've written a book not dissimilar in theme from Kim's. It is also about a person who has come out to Idaho to find themselves, and then in the process of being here encounters loss and revelation. And let's talk a little bit about the title as well of your book. It's God's Dogs. And explain the title a little bit. It has to do with an animal.
It does. The title was the term the Navajo used for coyotes. They believed that the animal itself was one of God's dogs. And so in the book itself, coyotes feature pretty prominently. It's set down in Owyhee County, and that's hence the title.
But the howl itself and the sound is a theme throughout. And why did you do that?
I think that came from my own experiences. The book is actually, as I said, set in Owyhee, but when I wrote it, I was living out on a farm outside of New Plymouth, kind of between New Plymouth and Emmett. And we had moved far off the main highway, had no neighbors whatsoever, and every night practically I would hear some type of coyote howl. And it just kind of became a part of my life. We'd go out to feed the horses and
it's
either
very significant for your character though too.
It is. It comes to take on significance. My main character is a retired Ohio history teacher who leaves his job, and he's divorced, and he decides he wants to be alone, buys 100 acres of scrubland in Owyhee County, builds a cabin, and decides solitude is what he's after. And almost on, as I experienced myself, almost on a nightly basis, he begins to hear the coyotes around him, and learns there's actually 11 different vocalizations that they do. There's the group howls and the barks and the yips and the yaps. So when he hears them at night, or when he sees them in the daytime, it begins to be like a special omen for him. He feels better, more complete.
I noticed that both of your books, and of course this is reflected in the title of your book, Kim, have to do with what is home. Where do we find home? And ultimately, is it within each one of us, or is it a place? Or is it a combination of both?
Right.
Is that a fair assessment?
Sure, and I think what interests me too, I was born and raised in Idaho. My father was a logger. I was raised in the Clearwater National Forest in the logging camps. And so I have always belonged to place, both to the landscape. All I had to do would be to go to a post office anywhere within 100 miles and go through my lineage. You know, this was my father, they called him Okie. He worked for my great uncle, that was Clyde Knight, and I'm immediately a part of the place. I am home. These people recognize me. But the newcomers to the West, and of course Idaho especially, a lot of people coming in, not from this place, and their people aren't necessarily from this place. How do they find a place of community? What is their story? And I once, a friend, the writer Deborah Erling, a wonderful writer, once said, the thing is, we agreed that there is no story without loss. And we talked then about what is the story of the West. We have lost so much. But when new people come in from outside, their narratives haven't yet blended with the narrative of the community. And one thing that my book explores, A Country Called Home explores, is how your narrative, the story of who you are, almost requires a kind of loss for the community to allow you to blend in. There has to be movement in your narrative, and that is one of the heartbreaking truths, I think, of my book, A Country Called Home.
Yes, yes, but a beautiful book. I encourage people to read it, and Mitch as well. Your book does include loss, tremendous loss.
Yeah, there is a significant death in the latter part of the book, and
Do you agree with Kim?
absolutely, I think she's right on the money. It really, with my main character being an outsider, with a couple of his reclusive neighbors being outsiders, there are also local ranchers that he has as neighbors, and the loss kind of brings them all together at the end. Yeah.
Well, we will remind people of these books. That's God's Dogs, Mitch Wieland, and A Country Called Home by Kim Barnes. We'll have them on our website. And we're going to move on to some of your picks and then our viewers' picks as well. And speaking about loss, unfortunately, we've had tremendous loss in Haiti recently, and I wanted to make sure that we recommended some books about that region of the world in case you're interested in learning more. There are some wonderful, both Haitian writers and people who've written about Haiti. And let's start with you, Mitch. You want to recommend All Souls Rising by Madison Smart Bell, a person that you have published in the Idaho Review.
Yes, we've published several chapters from the book. He's actually written a trilogy of novels about the Haitian Revolution. All Souls Rising is the first, set in 1791 at the very start of the revolt, and it is a fantastic, epic, old-fashioned read. I mean, in its scope and its reach, it's just a tremendous book. It centers on the second-generation African slave, a gentleman named Louverture, who ends up leading the revolt against the white French landowners, self-taught, and so the book follows his rise to lead the revolt. And I was really surprised to learn it was the only successful slave uprising in history.
Great, and Kim, you also would like to recommend some books by a well-known Haitian writer, Edwidge Danticat, and they are Breath, Eyes, and Memory, and Crick Crack, and this is a well-known writer.
Just two of a number of books that she has written. She writes both fiction and nonfiction. And of course, she's being called upon right now a great deal to be one of the voices to speak up and out for the Haitian people. I think she left Haiti when she was 4, if I remember right.
She went to Barnard, so she does live in the United States, but she is a voice, considered a voice of the Haitian people. And
absolutely.
Both these writers, Madison Smart Bell and Edwidge Danticat, have compiled lists of books about Haiti, and we have them on our website. So I encourage you to go to our website, which is at idahoptv.org, click on Dialogue, and there you will find these books about Haiti. And moving on, Mitch, you would like to recommend a book by an Idaho author,
Right.
Then Came the Evening.
Yeah, it's brand new. It's just out this month. Brian Hart is the author, and he's a Nampa native. He went to the MFA program at the University of Texas, the famed Michener Fellowship. It's set up near Kim's neck of the woods in Lewiston, and it's a wonderful book, a very powerful, strong, kind of terse style. He's been compared recently to Cormac McCarthy, kind of a young Cormac McCarthy.
And Kim, you have a book written by another Idahoan that you'd like to recommend. This is exciting.
Yes. Brandon Schran's memoir, The Enders Hotel. And Brandon is a colleague of mine, teaches at the University of Idaho and directs the program here. But it's the story of his growing up in Soda Springs, Idaho. His family ran the Enders Hotel, which was this grand old hotel. They took in any number of characters who came through. Sometimes one of the images I'll never forget in Brandon's book, and he grew up in this hotel, so he has these wonderful images of his bedroom being underneath the chandelier, you know, and all these rooms with these numbers and the people who came in and out. But often they were people who were down and outers, and his family would take them in. They would have no money, and so the family would say, okay, I'll take your suitcase, and kind of put it in hocks so that when you can pay. Well, of course, often these people left without being able to pay and never asked for their suitcases back. And one of the great images is that Brandon is a boy growing up in this wonderful environment, opening the door to this room that was full of people's lives, these suitcases and old photographs that they had left there. It's a story of searching for your masculinity and what is no longer the Old West. It's a story of cruelty and redemption and salvation. It's an amazing memoir.
Well, thanks for the recommend. That's again Ender's Hotel, and we will have these on our website. And Mitch, you'd like to recommend another book about people's lives, All Things All at Once by Lee Abbott.
This is a personal favorite of mine. The book itself is kind of a best of or collected stories of Lee K. Abbott. It's from his first 6 books compiled together, and he is, I think he should be a national treasure. He's a master of the short story form. He's one of the most distinctive voices, I think, in American fiction, a highly original, highly energized, comedic, almost feverish voice.
And he'll be coming to talk at Boise State?
He'll be here late April, April 28th. He'll be visiting campus, so I encourage everyone to come out and see him. He's an amazing writer.
Great. Let's take some calls now. Carlene in Boise. Carlene, what would you like to recommend?
I'd like to recommend my son's book, who graduated from Boise State University. His book is called The Year of the Horse. This is his second book, and it is a story of a young Chinese boy who gets caught up with a group of men that are going west and actually into Idaho to look for a stolen gold mine. And it's centered around Silver City, and it has a lot of our family names in it, which is really unusual to read a book in which you know the characters in the book.
And tell us your son,
Carlene,
tell us your son's name.
Justin Allen.
Okay, Year of the Horse by Justin Allen.
Justin Allen.
Thanks so much for calling. We need to move on, but I will put that on the list, and I'll put it on our website. And congratulations to your son. And you were nodding your head.
He was a student of mine.
All right.
Yeah, philosophy student. He actually took a fiction class from me and went on to Columbia to get his MFA. So
fabulous.
It's great to hear.
Well, we have some more recommendations from viewers off our Facebook page, which I find really neat because I love that interaction from social media. And Chad wants to recommend The Road by Cormac McCarthy, which is also a movie that's out right now. And I know you are a fan of Cormac McCarthy's as well, Mitch.
Well, one of the best living writers. Yeah, I've suggested him the last couple times on the show, so I held back, but he's a fantastic writer.
And Courtney,
I agree.
Yes, so do I. Courtney wrote in on Facebook, and she wanted to recommend a book about Barry Goldwater, actually, called Before the Storm, The Unmaking of the American Consensus by Rick Perlstein. So that looks really interesting, too, certainly during this era of heightened political awareness and parties moving around. That looks like a good one to read. And another one that I'll take right now off of Facebook is Amy, who recommended a book called My Sweet Wild Dance, and it's about a woman growing up in Scotland. Again, these books will all be on our website along with Mitch and Kim's picks and our callers' picks as well. So please check that out. And let's go back to you, Kim. You'd like to recommend a book that you're just starting but really liking called The Ticking is the Bomb. And I read about this book online when you suggested it, and it looks fascinating. A memoir that involves Abu Ghraib.
Yes. This is by Nick Flynn, who is one of the most exciting writers of nonfiction memoir, I think, that we have writing today. His first book was incredibly well received. It was a fascinating memoir about his quest for truth and identity inside of a family that whose identity could not really be nailed down. And I recommend it highly. It's called Another BS Night in Suck City.
But this book, he actually goes, he winds his own life in with meeting some of the people who have been tortured at Abu Ghraib.
He's having his first child. And what he does that is so brilliant, and I'm so excited to continue reading about, is to weave in the emotions he feels, bringing a new life into a world that is in and of itself tortured at times, with this increasing fascination with this thing that happened in Abu Ghraib. And he actually travels to interview some of the people who were tortured.
Every time I do this program, my reading list gets longer. Mitch, you would like to recommend a book, another book set in this part of the country called Ghosts of Wyoming.
Right, this is another brand new book. It's by a Wyoming writer, Allison Hagee. It'll actually be out, I think, in 2 weeks. And it's a collection of short stories set in Wyoming and spanning the 1800s through contemporary time. There's 8 stories, and I was surprised when I got the book recently. I'd published 3 of them in the Idaho Review, but they're so different I didn't realize they were from the same collection. The first, for example, is called Brief Lives of the Trainmen, and it involves a single day of railroad workers laying track in the Wyoming territories. And then there's another story that we had done in the Idaho Review called Oil and Gas, which is set now, involving workers in the oil fields and the gas fields around Gillette.
I love short stories, especially when you're on a plane or something like that, or you want to read something before you go to sleep and you want to finish it.
Sure,
and
yeah,
I liked
absolutely.
the fact that your book, while it was a novel, was kind of short stories all put together.
They were published individually and then lined up in a row.
I just love short stories. Let's take a call from Robert in Boise. Robert, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. I have 3 books I would like to.
Can you narrow it down to one, please?
What?
Can you narrow it down to one?
Well, yeah, I can if you wish.
Okay.
I like one, Lone Star Rising.
Lone Star Rising?
Lone Star Rising is by Elmer Kelton,
Okay.
and it's a trilogy about the Texas Rangers, and it includes Idaho, and then I have 2 more books on Idaho here. A.B. Guthrie Jr. called The Big Sky, and that's
Classic.
winner of
Absolutely.
the Pulitzer Prize. And then I have another one, The Long Ride Home, the novel by W. Michael Gear, G-E-A-R. That's about Idaho.
Well, thank you, Robert. You're obviously an avid reader because you tried to narrow it down to one, but you just couldn't.
Can't hear you,
And
ma'am.
that's okay. We can hear you fine. Thanks so much for your calls. Robert was recommending Lone Star Rising, The Big Sky by A.B. Guthrie, which is certainly a classic, and Long Ride Home, and we'll put those on our website. And since he mentioned Texas,
Yes.
let's skip ahead and tell people a book that you recommend called Tejano,
Tejano, yeah.
which is set in Texas.
Absolutely, yeah. It's from a writer named Alan Weir, who was my teacher at the University of Alabama. And this was actually the first book that I thought of when you called me up for suggestions for a good winter read. It is an epic Western. It took Alan 8 years to write it. It starts in the antebellum era, runs through the Civil War, through the Reconstruction era afterward. Centers on a self-taught undertaker named Gideon Jones, and pretty much follows his life in the Comanche territory in Texas. I would describe it as Charles Dickens meets Larry McMurtry, almost. It's as if Lonesome Dove would have been redone by Dickens. It's so authentic and so complete in its detail. It's an amazing book, a wonderful read.
Wonderful. And Kim, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to a book that you've recommended called In the Land of Invisible Women. And this will allow us to talk a little bit about what's coming up in your life in terms of writing.
Sure. I want to recommend this book because it's a memoir that is very current, very contemporary, about a young female doctor who has been educated in the United States and is a specialist in 2 or 3 different areas, and she must step outside of the United States for a year and chooses to go to Saudi Arabia. She herself is a Muslim, but she has not been a serious practitioner of her faith. She's a very contemporary woman and affluent. And she goes to Arabia and is put into this hospital in which she must not only face issues having to do with her faith and resolve herself to her faith, which is a story into itself. It's part of the journey of this book, but also the multifaceted face of contemporary Saudi Arabia. So one of the most arresting images is the one that opens the book. The author is a gorgeous, modern woman, and of course she has to cover when she goes to Arabia. But there's an elderly woman, a Bedouin woman, on the operating table. She is unclothed, but she has her veil on. And the tubes and everything are running up underneath her veil because her face cannot be seen, even though the rest of her is laid bare.
And Kim, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but you're interested in this book in part because your next book, American Mecca, will be about Saudi Arabia.
Yes, it's set in 1967, Saudi Arabia, in the Arabian American oil compound, the Aramco compound of Abqaiq. And it's a story of a young couple who come to Arabia to work for the oil company to make a better life for themselves.
Well, I'll be excited to read that book, having been in the Middle East myself. And what's next for you, Mitch? You also have a book kind of about cultural differences as well.
I do. For the last 2 years, I've been writing a novel set in Japan, and it's about an American family from Idaho, husband, wife, and their 2 teenage sons. And they moved to Idaho when the parents lose their jobs, and they originally go to Tokyo to seek a better life, and find out that the experience changes them. So.
And you've lived in Japan, right?
For several years,
okay.
yes.
Well, let's try and sneak in one last call. Levon in Lewiston, could you state your question? Be brief, though. We want to get it in. Levon? Oops. Levon, go ahead.
I just wondered, because I'm only 15 and I just want to become an author really soon, what advice do you have?
Oh, that is a great question. Kim, what advice do you have for a 15-year-old who wants to become an author?
Write what matters and keep yourself in the chair and don't leave the room.
What about you, Mitch?
That's about it. It takes dedication and perseverance. And I would also say read as much as you can right now, because that feeds into your writing, yeah.
And for people who want to go on into this field and get an MFA perhaps and think, oh, I might not be able to find a job, what would you say, Kim? We've got about 30 seconds left, but I know you think it's a good thing to do.
It is a good thing. The employment rate for people holding an MFA is 100%.
Oh.
We're not saying what they're doing, but I think it allows you to move into any field.
You were saying that before the program, you were saying the MFA could be the new MBA.
That is a book that's out right now. That what we have in America that cannot be exported so easily is our creativity.
Well, I thank both of you, both wonderfully creative people and Idahoans. We're proud to have you in our state. Thank you for sharing your works with us and also your recommendations. And folks, if you're still on the line, hang on the line. We will get your book recommendations in our web extra. Thanks so much for tuning in to Dialogue.
Thank you.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho. To order a copy of this program from Idaho Public Television, call our toll-free number or visit us on the World Wide Web.